This case is about 10-year-old Breasia Terrell from Davenport, Iowa. She lived with her mom, Aisha Langford, and her two brothers. On July 9th, Breasia and her brother were at their grandmother's house, and DL's father came to pick him up. Now, Breasia and DL were thick as thieves, best friends tied at the hip. So DL wanted Breasia to go with him to his father's house. Things were arranged, and Breasia and DL went with Henry Dinkins, who is DL's father, to his apartment that he shares with Andrea Culbertson. So while at this home, they played video games, they watched some TV. Andrea, she works from home for AT&T, so she was showing Breasia what she does on the computer. So about 9:30, 10 o'clock, everybody goes to sleep. Now, the kids, Breasia and DL, are in the bedroom sleeping in the bed. Andrea and Henry, they're in the living room on an air mattress. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Andrea wakes up to use the bathroom, and she notices that Henry's not in the living room. She glances into the room, and she sees DL at the foot of the bed, but she doesn't too much see Breasia. So she goes to the bathroom, which is in the bedroom where the kids are sleeping. When she comes out, she gets her glasses so that she can focus. And there's no Breasia in the bed. Andrea has this uneasy feeling in her spirit, and so she tries to call Henry and text Henry, only to find out that his phone has been left at home on the charger. So with this uneasy feeling, Andrea can't go back to sleep. She stays up, and about 3:30 a.m., Henry comes back home. He comes home, he goes into the room, into the closet, and he retrieves something, but she can't tell what it is because it's hiding under his clothes. He's not answering any of her questions. He leaves the apartment once again, and mind you, without his cell phone. Something tells Andrea to look out the window, and she sees Breasia standing by Henry's maroon Impala. Hours go by, and Henry comes back to the apartment around 5:45 a.m. Andrea's asking him questions about where Breasia is, but he's not answering her. He grabs DL, some of DL's clothing, and he tries to leave the apartment. But Andrea reminds him that he doesn't have his cell phone. So he gets the cell phone and he leaves the apartment. Once Henry and DL leave the apartment, Andrea notices that Henry's left some of the children's belongings behind. So she calls him and tells him to come back and get the belongings. He comes back. Andrea goes outside to give him the items, and she notices there's no Breasia in the car. DL testifies that once they left the apartments, they drove out of town, a long way, and where they ended up was a Walmart. Now, Henry Dinkins exits the car and goes into the Walmart. DL sees his father's cell phone sitting there with the battery out. He wants to play a game, so he puts the battery back into the cell phone to play a game. While inside the Walmart, Henry is caught on CCTV camera purchasing 2 bottles of Clorox bleach. When DL saw his father coming out of the Walmart, he hurried up and took the battery back out the cell phone so he wouldn't get into any trouble. DL further testifies in court that once they leave the Walmart, him and his father drive on a dirt road, and his father exits the car and pours Clorox bleach near some bushes. After leaving the woods, Henry calls Aisha with a bunch of lies. He tells her that he just woke up and found out that Breasia was missing, and that him and DL were out searching for her, and that he had already made a police report. Aisha calls the police department only to find out that there was no report of her daughter missing. So she leaves work and heads to the police department. On her way to the police department, she passes Henry going at a high rate of speed in the opposite direction. She speeds up, catches up with him, and they pull over at a McDonald's. Aisha asks him why he was in that part of town, and he tells her that He didn't know the address of where he was staying, and so he was going to have to go back to the apartment to get the address. Being that Henry had already lost one of her children, she was taking no chances, so she put DL in the car with her. She follows Henry back to the apartment where they're met by the police. Aisha speaks to the officer on scene. Eventually, Henry shows up into the parking lot. Aisha and Henry have some harsh words, and Aisha leaves angry and leaves Henry with the police officer. Since Aisha's mother lives in the area, she goes there to get pictures of Breasia to take to the police department. Henry is seen on police body cam footage speaking to the police officers, being aggravated, and walking off, leaving the police officer with no one to speak to about missing Breasia. Henry eventually comes back and walks with the officer to the apartment so that the officer can search the apartment. But then he leaves again. A brief search of the apartment is made reluctantly with the approval of Andrea Culbertson. Later that day, when Henry is brought in for questioning, he is questioned for over an hour at the police department, and eventually he's arrested for failure to register his new address. Yes, Henry Dinkins had to register his address because he was an SO. Dinkins had been charged in 1990 with the SA of a 5-year-old child. Aisha would only sleep 9 hours in the first 5 days. Aisha says she couldn't close her eyes because she would see Breasia's face and hear her say, "Okay, Mom, I'm here. Come help me. Come find me." Breasia's mom described her as having a big personality. She said she was a fighter. She said she was a good sister. She was playful. She loved to draw, loved to sing, and was a big Moana fan. Her and her mom would do TikTok dances on the regular. Breasia really looked up to her mom. Back at the apartment, extensive searches by hundreds of law enforcement and volunteers lasted for several weeks. Breasia's mom, Aisha, was outside day and night searching for her daughter. Searching for her daughter in the woods, stores, neighbors, anywhere that she could think of where her daughter might be. She handed out hundreds of missing person flyers. Aisha would receive backlash, trolling, and harsh criticism after she flooded social media with posts about her 10-year-old missing daughter Breasia, so she had to close all of her accounts. People just couldn't understand why, knowing that Henry was a registered sex offender, why she would let her daughter go with this man, let alone spend the night with this man. On March 22nd, 2021, 9 months after Breasia went missing, 3 friends decided to go fishing. The 3 friends were Brendan Rogie, Jesse Dow, and Eric Johnson. On their way to the fishing spot at Kuna Implement in DeWitt, Iowa, one of them described seeing something really white in a wooded area. He went over to see what it was and found out it was a human skull. As him and his friends looked around in confusion, they would see scattered remains everywhere. The police were called, and an investigation would begin.